Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner. I think it's been quite a while since we last had Controller of the City of New York, formerly Assemblyman Scott Stringer. He ran for mayor last time around, and now he's announcing he's running again. So, Scott, welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Zev, it's great to be here with you. It's been a while, but I'm really glad to be back on.
Thank you. So I know it's a little bit early, so I think you're the first one that's really exploring running for mayor. What's going on? Why are you deciding to announce your potential run at this juncture in history?
Well, look, I set up an exploratory committee to evaluate running for mayor, raising money, and getting into the communities, having a conversation with New Yorkers. And what people are telling me is something I feel as well. The city is not recovering quick enough. There are people, middle class, working class people who are struggling in this city in all 5 boroughs. We have people who can't pay the rent. They don't see an economic future, and we have got to reverse that. And part of what I bring to the table is an understanding of finance. I understand the budgets. And right now we have a budget dance that the mayor is dancing with himself. He's talking about fake deficits, and sometimes he talks about fake surpluses. He talks about how agencies are supposed to be meeting their mandates, but in reality, these agencies are hollowed out. No one's working in them, and you see it everywhere we go. Let's face it, felony crime is up. Affordable housing construction is down. Education's flat, and we have an economic crisis that we need to address. So I'm exploring the possibility of running for mayor. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. My wife and I are raising our 2 children here. We believe in the city, and I want to bring my experience and put it to work for New York if I can build the kind of campaign that I need to build.
But some of the things you're just saying may be beyond the control of any mayor of New York. The migrant crisis has put a strain on the city. As long as New York is a sanctuary city and migrants are coming in, they're being housed and fed. So I wonder how you would deal with that, because that's putting a strain on the economy. Inflation is up also. There's high crime because of the no bail laws. So, and businesses are bailing out of New York and moving to Florida.
Well, that's why you pay the mayor the big money to work on these issues.
But how do you get around it? How do you get around the migrants and the crime problem?
You take it one step at a time. First of all, you have to reorganize the police department. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars in police overtime. It's easier just to have more cops, but the cops are leaving because they're working these long shifts that are not sustainable. What's the mayor's answer to it? He calls it K5, a robot to patrol the subways. That didn't work, and the overtime crisis didn't work. And I think we need a manager in this town who understands how to get the most from our police officers. And what's really starting to happen here, when you really drill down on the data, you're also looking at police response times are up, meaning that it's taking longer to get to crime scenes. We're not convicting the people who should be actually spending time in jail. We look at the felonies, the car thefts. So we need a comprehensive program. But you know what we also need, Zev? Some common sense. When I take my son to his school every morning, we're on the subway. There are homeless people who are sleeping on the subway because they have nowhere to go, because we didn't build the low-income housing or the supportive beds that we needed. He claimed there was a deficit in the budget for 2 years and did nothing to address these underlying mental health conditions.
But here's where the problem is, Scott. The problem is that you have no bail laws, and you have the police are discouraged. So it's not that overtime may be an issue, but the main issue is that they're arresting people and as fast as they finish the paperwork, they're already out.
Well, first of all, we've now looked at the bail laws, and there have been improvements made to them every legislative session. And as mayor, I will go to Albany and have real conversations about a comprehensive approach to criminal justice. Look, I grew up in this town in the 1970s when there were 2,000 murders a year. My mother used to say to my brother and I, sit in the conductor car. So I know from where I speak, I'm not sending this city back in time, but I'm also not going to allow mismanagement and so many agencies to rule the day in this city. We need a manager. We need someone who understands finance so that we can look at some of these critical issues. But also, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time, Zev. Yes, you can talk that you're tough on crime, but if you can't manage the criminal justice system, that's on you. If you can't help and allocate resources for mental health issues, that's on you. And I don't believe that the mayor plays a minor role in these issues. You can't, as Mayor Adams says, love migrants on Monday, hate them on Wednesday, blame them for his fiscal incompetence on Thursday, and suddenly claim that the city's at a standstill because of migrants. Well, you know what? My grandparents were migrants. My grandparents came to
Were they
the city.
migrants or were they immigrants?
They
There's a
were
difference.
immigrants. They,
Okay,
well, they were
migrants are
immigrants.
not the immigrants. They're people who are here illegally.
Well, they were immigrants, but it's the same process, right? And by the way, not all of our immigrants came here the traditional way, and I think we have to own up to that as well.
Okay, but the sheer numbers are overwhelming in New York City and other cities around the country.
We've
You have
lost.
a problem.
We do. Look, we have a issue, but it doesn't have to be a problem. If we were building the supportive housing we should have been building in the last 2.5 years, if we had a comprehensive approach with services to the migrants, and also making sure that we had safe situations so we don't have people sleeping in the streets. I mean, we have 65,000 migrants. We don't have 1 million. And I think we need to showcase what a mayor can do to alleviate a potential crisis.
So how do you alleviate the migrant crisis? Because it's a drain on society. They're not legally here, so their crime has gone up. They're part of it. The Venezuelan gangs are just one example. People, I think, are disgusted and looking for leadership. The question, though, is the city council, until they make changes. For example, there's now a new law in the books where the police officers have to file more paperwork. Every time they accost somebody, they have to write it down, which just adds more paperwork. And I'm sure a lot of police officers don't like that. They've come out very strongly against it, and that's something which the city council overruled the mayor about.
Well, look, the mayor has to show leadership, and leadership is building relationships. He doesn't have a relationship with city council. He doesn't really have a relationship with Albany. He has zero relationship with the president of the United States. You know what that says to me? He's not getting it done in terms of building the necessary political and economic relationships we need to alleviate these crises. He cannot keep blaming everybody but himself. And I think New Yorkers are starting to catch on to this. They want a mayor who wakes up every morning with a plan and understands that it takes hard work to build our agencies to meet these challenges. And agency after agency is hollowed out. People, we can't even get working papers filled out or paperwork processed for the migrants so that people can get jobs and become part of society if they choose to stay here. We have none of these programs, and we have different dictates from the mayor. Some days it's a shelter limit, other days it's a credit card or a card for migrants to these contracts, these emergency contracts that are giving away money. Some of it is worthy, some of it is not. We have to have a mayor who can streamline this bureaucracy and make some sense of it. And we're not seeing that now, Zev.
Our guest is former controller of New York City. He was a former assemblyman. He ran for mayor last time around. He's looking to run for mayor again, Scott Stringer. And we're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. And if you'd like to chime in, we'll try to squeeze in 1 or 2 phone calls. 212-769-1925. 212-769-1925. Email is a wonderful way to have some of your questions answered. zev@talklinenetwork.com. zev@talklinenetwork.com. We'll be right back. Hello.
Yes, hello. I wanted to answer my 2 questions.
Sure. What do you want to ask him?
The question is, the Lower East Side's character is rapidly being changed.
Sure. Hold on, George. I'm going to put you on. Hold on.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, who?
Yeah, you know what? Call me on the regular number because we're using the regular phone. Though, can I try to call the 212 number?
You want me to try the 212?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll patch you in through there.
I'm going to hang up then.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay. Hello.
That's me.
You're on. Hold on.
Okay.
George,
Yes, I'm here.
you're gonna be next. Hold on.
Thank you.
And we're back. Scott Stringer, former controller of the city of New York. He's looking to run for mayor again. And we're going to squeeze in one or two more of your phone call. Let's go to George in Manhattan. You have a question for our guest. Go ahead, George. All right, go ahead, Scott.
I couldn't hear the question.
I think it's something to do with George, are you still there? Something to do with the heritage of the Lower East Side, that the heritage is being destroyed in the Lower East Side. I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the question is, but I can just speak to the Lower East Side as a former borough president for 8 years. I love the rich diversity of the Lower East Side, the different group of people who live from all different backgrounds. You know, my wife is the chief operating officer of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, and we spend a lot of time at that museum. It's a wonderful place. It speaks to the Holocaust, and kids are getting educated there. But then you go into the Lower East Side neighborhoods, and there's an amazing Latino population. There are people who live in public housing who are just integral to the neighborhood. And this is where the Jewish experience started in so many ways in New York City on the Lower East Side. So
you mentioned the Holocaust, by the way. How has the Holocaust impacted you?
well, look, you know, I have a unique perspective from the point of view of every day my wife goes to work, it's to tell the story of the Holocaust. And we are very aware, because of her work, of the amount of people who don't even believe there was a Holocaust, or people don't truly understand it, and we're not educating kids enough to deal with it. And you know, I have a young son who's going to be is going to be a bar mitzvah this year, and I worry about them as Jewish kids, but I also worry that we're not educating people to the Holocaust, because when you understand it, you realize that so many people can be impacted by this kind of unmitigated violence.
Let's go to Stan in Forest Hills. Go ahead, your question for Scott Stringer. Are you calling Scott Stringer a beam? I'm not sure how you compare him with a beam, but go ahead. I'll let you continue. Oh, you don't like not that you don't like a controller for mayor because one controller wasn't good, so all controllers won't be good as mayor. I'll let Scott respond to you. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm having trouble hearing the question. He sounded very spirited. Could you just give me what
He said what demographically you can't win. He says he doesn't like the fact that you are a controller, doesn't feel a controller could again run the city of New York. He feels that you had some issues dealing with the prior race, so he feels that you can't win in New York.
So let him vote for somebody else. Truth of the matter is, we do need somebody who understands the fiscal challenges of the city. We also need somebody who is going to be able to walk in every community, not just the Jewish community, but the African-American community, Latino community, and all the communities in between. And I believe that the experience I've had as borough president, working as a state assembly member, in addition to my 8 years as controller, certainly gives me the ability to navigate some of these critical issues. But you know what? Not everyone's going to vote for you. And if you don't like controllers, you probably didn't vote for Beam. You won't vote for me. That's okay.
Anyway, Stan, thanks for your phone call. A spirited phone call. Stan's always spirited whenever he calls us.
Tell Sam it's all right.
So here's the question, by the way. What about yeshiva education? I'm getting an email question about that, about yeshiva education. Do you think that the New York Times and others have done studies and they say they're truly not being educated properly? What's your take on that?
Look, as somebody who has visited the yeshivas.
Yes, hello. Who is this?
Goodbye.
Yes, go ahead, Scott.
As someone who's visited the yeshivas, visited the classrooms, I've seen firsthand the education that the kids are getting. I've gone to some great classrooms, some great teachers, great rabbis. But look, no size fits all. Education.
Yes, hello, who's this?
Education must be for everybody.
Hold on.
We must have quality education.
Let's take Alex from Brooklyn. Go ahead, Alex from Brooklyn. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Alex. Did you have the question?
No.
He wants to know how you're going to desensitize the migrants from coming to New York City to maybe go someplace else. He feels that the current mayor has not done enough to make them look at other places to go to. We're having a crisis in New York.
Okay, if I may suggest, we are a city of immigrants. We have a migrant population that can be integrated into our city with some real management and real understanding. I'm not going to play to the crowd and say that we should be giving out plane tickets and putting people on buses.
But he says, but they're giving them cards, Metro cards. They're giving debit cards. They treat it better than the homeless in New York.
Well, I think that's a very serious issue because we didn't get to talk about the homeless crisis because it has been overlooked. We have more people in homeless shelters than ever before, migrants and people who were previously homeless, where when I talk about the debit card or the money on the card, I really talk about it from the vantage point of there doesn't seem to be a coherent strategy, right? We have a program on a Monday for 2 weeks, then we have another program, then we have a no bid contract so that we don't really get to the heart of who's actually making money and whether these contracts are cost effective. So obviously people are saying, well, wait a minute, all this money is going to one segment of the population at the expense of another. And that's part of the crisis that Eric Adams has.
Let him finish. Go ahead.
And it's part of the crisis that Eric Adams has generated. Look, our population took a 500,000 person hit. We have 65,000 migrants. We will be able to integrate people who want to stay. And obviously not everyone will stay. People will leave. But the attack on migrants is the same attack on the immigrants of our parents, grandparents, and great-great-grandparents. And I'm not going to play that game. We're going to make sure that migrants have a future here if they want it here. And we're also going to make sure that the population, the middle class, the people who pay the taxes, the people who wake up every day to feed their families, that they have housing, they have economic opportunity, they have job development.
But let me ask you before I get to Alex, but the migrants have been millions of dollars that we don't have. The New York City is in a crisis because we're spending so much on the migrants, which not getting enough help from the federal government or from the state to take care of that. When you have 65,000 people coming pretty much at one time, it's different than having illegal immigration where it's over a period of time. You have never had 65,000 will show up just the one time.
Look, do I think Washington has to do their fair share? Yes. And when I'm mayor, I'll go to the White House. I'll actually be invited in. I'll sit down. I'll give them a plan, work with the governor and the legislature. The problem is the mayor has cut himself off from every ally, so that, of course, there's no money coming in. It's dried up because people don't think he's managing the crisis well, because there hasn't been a coherent and consistent strategy. You build a tent in a flood zone, that doesn't cut it. You create a shelter system that is dangerous for the migrants and the people in the surrounding area. You have to have a consistency. And I think people should listen to the candidates and their specific programs and evaluate them within the next year or so.
Alex, your final 10-second question. So your question, you want to see New York City residents get the preference before the migrants get to what they're getting right now? I'll go let him respond to you.
Can you repeat it?
He wants to know if you'll treat New York residents to get preference over the migrants and getting some of the aids and some of the things that they're getting. He feels New York City residents should get first preference.
It doesn't work that way. When people are on New York City soil, everyone should have equal opportunity. Remember, just again, like immigrants who came here, as a great tradition of our city, we're a city of immigrants, we're a nation of immigrants. I would just say to all of you who are listening tonight, the kids who are here, who are living in these shelters, some of them are as young as 5 and 4 years old. Some of them are sleeping on blankets in schools with a single parent that's with them. Let us live the Jewish tradition of helping others and making sure that there's room for everybody. This is a big city. We don't have to be pitted against each other. That's the kind of rhetoric that has gotten us in trouble in this country with Donald Trump. I think we have a better way of going forward, and I hope people will understand.
I think people want to help us, Scott, but the question though is, it's coming at the expense where there's been cuts. The money has to come from somewhere. If you're going to be spending millions of dollars on migrants, it has to come from somewhere. It means you have to cut services.
No. But that's, you're buying into the mayor's false narrative.
Why is it a false narrative? The money has to come from somewhere.
Because we don't have a budget deficit. We have a budget surplus.
How much do we have? How much more money do we have than?
It may turn out to be in the billions. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he was not telling the truth for the last year. So we didn't develop programs for all people in the city.
So where's the money? Why is agencies being cut?
Well, you have to, because this mayor did not tell the truth about the budget crisis and did not use the resources that he knew was going to be available to invest in housing, invest in economic development, so that all New Yorkers would benefit, whether you lived in Brooklyn or Queens or Manhattan. There's been no economic development program. So when people call up and say, what about me? I've been in this city for 20 years. I want to make sure that my family is fed. And you look at cuts, these cuts are nonsensical. He cut pre-K and 3K. Hundreds of millions of dollars in cuts that didn't have to happen and must be restored. We need a mayor who truly understands the financials of the city, agency by agency. Remember, Zev, as controller, I audited every single agency. I could tell you where the money is, whether it's under a pillow or it's in a bank. No one knows that
Bring
better.
it out. We need the money. We need the money. New York City needs the money.
Money is there, and it's what you do with it. Look, every mayor comes into office with priorities. My priority would be education and housing, and I would also make sure that we have a safe city as well. That's what management is all about. But my passion for the city is not for people to fight among themselves. Let's grab the mantle of leadership in this country and make this city and continue to make this city the greatest city on earth. But we need to have management at City Hall. We need to have a plan. There's been no accomplishments that we will remember of this administration because they got bogged down in fighting with the president, with the council, with the assembly. It doesn't work like that. Being mayor is the person who's the grown-up in the room, who understands government.
Do you like this administration less than the Blasio administration?
You know, it's funny. I spent 8 years of my life holding de Blasio accountable. And that's why I'm audited every single agency. I did 19 audits of NYCHA. I did audits of the housing department, of you name it. I stopped de Blasio from borrowing $5 billion at the height of COVID because he didn't have a plan for it. So I'm very engaged in the battles that go on in the budget. And I want to go to City Hall to stop that fighting and start investing in the things that we need to be a city. Look, why do people want to be in New York? It's the intellectual capital of the world. It's the financial capital of the world. We're also the cultural diverse capital of the world. And the way we get people to come here and stay here and spend their money here, parks, culture, recreation, a safe city, streets, where our parents and grandparents can thrive as seniors, and our little kids, like mine, 12 and 10 years old, when people see me on YouTube, they're going to remember, oh, he does have those young kids, right? But we want to make sure that those kids have a future, no matter where they come from.
We have a few moments left. Are you tossing your hat early into the ring? I think you're the first or almost declared candidate for mayor.
Well, look, the reality of politics, and Zev, you know this as a political observer and someone who knows how to analyze a mayoral election, we have to get out there and raise money and take advantage of the campaign finance program, which rewards you going out, sitting in living rooms, listening to what people have to say, and getting those small dollar contributions. I'm not going to be supported by the special interests, but I am going to be supported by the people. And that means I have to take the temperature of whether people want me to be mayor. If everybody says, you know, we don't want a controller to be mayor, like that caller tonight, right? Well, then maybe I shouldn't be running for mayor. But
when are you going to make up your mind? When is your date?
Sometime by the end of the year. We'll have a financial filing in July. You know, it's tough raising money in this climate, but we're going to do the best we can. And then I'll make a decision. I'll talk to my wife. My 10-year-old son said to me that I can run, but he said that this was going to be his last campaign at 10 years old. So
does he want a bar mitzvah in Gracie Mansion?
Yeah, he probably does, but I gotta get through this one this year. I got number one son
before the 10-year-old bar mitzvah. Right. Question: are you concerned Andy Cuomo is making noises that he wants to run? Are you concerned that he run? That he's a powerful opponent if he decides to put his hat in the ring as well?
Look, everybody's a powerful opponent. Look, I beat a former governor, Eliot Spitzer, when I ran for controller. I've also lost races. You can't think about who's coming in. You just got to lay out the things, the issues that you believe in, the work that you want to do, then make people take a reevaluation or evaluate your record. And you can't worry about who's in, who's out. It's not the way to win an election. And the ones I've been successful in were the ones that I just stuck my nose to the grindstone and worked really hard trying to convince people to vote for me.
Scott, thank you for joining. What's your Hebrew name?
Oh, Shlomo.
Shlomo. So we have to use Shlomo on the campaign trail. Okay.
Yes. We'll be out there.
Anyway, Shlomo Stringer, former controller of the city of New York, thank you for joining us. Look forward to having you back and can keep the dialogue and conversation going. So thank you.
Zev, thank you very much. And thank all the viewers out there, listeners. I really appreciate listening to what I have to say.
And thank you so much. And Scott Stringer here on the Talkline Network.